Hello everybody, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about the third story in this compilation of Philip K. Dick short stories. It is called The Little Movement, and I should say, I haven't brought this up before, I don't think. You should buy this book, okay? Philip K. Dick is very prolific and very popular, but it's crazy to me that when you walk into a Barnes and Noble or something like that, of the, I don't know, 50 short novels that he wrote and the 120 short stories that he wrote, there'll be like 4 books in there, right? They'll have Ubik, hopefully, and they'll have Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, probably. You know, they'll have The Man in the High Castle. They'll have a few of them. But for having so many and for being so popular, he should have a section like this big, right? So I do just want to say, we're not sponsored by anybody or anything weird like that. I do just want to say, buy this book. It's fun. It's great. It's neat to kind of see the progression. I appreciate that all of these stories are basically early stories. I think these books are just chronological. So I think the deeper into this we get, the more advanced he's going to get as a writer. But I would definitely say pick this up. It's totally worth it. Anyways, The Little Movement. This is the third story I think that we're going over. This is a pretty good story. This isn't my favorite one so far, but it's not bad. It's not bad at all. It's kind of more of a fantasy, I think. I don't mean it's like medieval knights and stuff, but it's not. I don't know if I'd classify this as science fiction, really. It is kind of Twilight Zone-y, which is cool. It is the story. It starts off with this guy sitting on the sidewalk, and he's got this little box with him, and these little voices come out of the box saying, let us see, we want to come out." And he's like, "Not now," and the box starts vibrating and bouncing around, and he's like, okay. So he opens the lid, and you can see these little toy soldiers peeking their heads out and looking around. It's modern day for him. This was published in 1952. So it's 1952. And they said, we want to come out. And they start arguing about who gets to come out first, and they make a decision. And he pulls out one of the little toy figures, and it's a little wind-up toy soldier, and he winds it up, and it looks around, and it's like, okay, who are we going to sell to? So these little toy figures apparently are for sale. And these 2 women come walking by, and he's like, "Excuse me," the guy. So the salesman is like, "Excuse me, ladies, would you like to purchase this little wind-up soldier? It's only 50 cents. And the soldier's like, "Not those 2." Like, he doesn't want to be sold to these 2 women. And the women look confused, and they just move on. And then the soldier sees down the street coming towards them a dad and a little son. And the soldier's like, "Ooh, that one. And the guy's like, "No, I don't want to sell you to a child." And he picks up the little robot, the little wind-up toy, and the toy in protest digs his little metal fingers into the guy's hand. And the guy's like, "Ah." And he says, okay. And he puts it back down. And the 2 of them walk up, and he says, "Would you like to buy this for 50 cents, the salesman? And the toy soldier walks up to the dad and kind of bumps into his shoe and turns around and walks. And the kid's like, oh yeah. And the guy's like, "Well, okay, if you really want it." So the dad picks it up, and he gets 50 cents out of his pocket. He gets a buck out, actually, and the guy makes change for him. And then you cut to inside the car, and the little wind-up toy is on the back seat, and the wind-up toy is just ecstatic, right? Because he got to get sold to this little kid. So he's in the back thinking everything was perfect. I planned it perfectly, and I got the right one. Sometimes we get sold to the wrong people, and it turns out horrible, but this situation is perfect. So then we cut to the kid getting home, excitedly runs upstairs, and he goes in his room and shuts the door, and he jumps on his bed, and he pulls out the little toy soldier, and he's messing around with it, and then he realizes that he should introduce the toy soldier to the toys that he's already got. So he runs to his closet, he pulls out his toy crate, and it's got all kinds of stuffed animals in it, right? A bear and a frog and all kinds of stuff, and he brings those toys over and he's introducing them, and then he says, I know what we should do. We should wind you up so that the other toys can see what you can do. So he winds it up, he puts it down on the floor, and the little toy soldier starts walking around, and then it goes over to his blocks, and it starts pushing his blocks towards the door, and it makes this pyramid out of the blocks, and he climbs up the blocks to the doorknob, and he locks the door. And then he comes back down, and he goes over to the boy, and he says, I need you to do some things for me. I want you to listen to me. Because, of course, as he said earlier, the children are a lot more susceptible than the adults are. It's much easier for them to manipulate children. So the little boy picks him up and listens, and he says, I want you to call me my Lord. And the little boy's like, but he does it. And he explains to the little boy that he's not going to hurt him in any way, but that he's always going to be here, and that the little boy needs to do what he says. So then we cut to the next day, and the little boy's at school, and the toy soldier is sitting up on the dresser looking outside, and this little airplane comes flying in through the window, a little prop plane, I assume, comes flying in through the window, because it says buzzing in the story, and it lands on the dresser, and the plane is talking to the soldier, and the plane is saying, we need you to move on to phase 2. And the soldier's like, wow, that's so fast. Phase 2 already? Why? And the plane explains, because it's not going well. A lot of the toy soldiers that were sold were not sold to children. They were sold to adults. So that right there ruins those options, because the toy soldiers can't convince the adults to do what the toy soldiers say. It's much easier to convince the children. So those toy soldiers are wasted. And then there's also a huge amount of toy soldiers that were sold to kids but have been destroyed. And nobody knows why these toy soldiers were destroyed, but there's only like 4 toy soldiers in good working order with children. And when the wind-up soldier hears this, he's like, oh my gosh, only 4, that's crazy. How did that happen? So they don't know what's going on, but he has his orders to move on to phase 2. So the plane takes off and leaves. The kid gets home from school. And when he comes in the room, well, not when he comes in, it cuts to later at night. I believe the boy is sitting up in his room studying. I think he's got a biology book or something, and he's trying to read through it. And the toy soldier says, come over here, I need to talk to you. And the kid's really depressed. He's not doing well. He's really tired, and he looks a mess. And he comes over, and the toy soldier says, I need you to do something for me. I need you to pick up a delivery for me from the toy store. And the kid says, I don't have any money. And the soldier says, it's okay. It's all been worked out. There's going to be a couple tanks in there. There's going to be guns in there. And there'll be some toys for you. So it's going to be super fun. Pick up the delivery and bring it here after school tomorrow. So the next morning, the kid gets up, he gets ready for school, and he goes to leave, but he stops for a second. He comes back, he goes to his closet, he pulls out his teddy bear and sits on the bed for a minute, just sitting with his teddy bear. And then he gets up, puts his teddy bear back, and as he gets to the door, the toy soldier says, don't forget to pick up the box. And the kid leaves. Then the other toys come out of the closet, being led by the bear. And the bear comes to the dresser, and he says, "You need to come down here. We need to talk." And then the frog comes up and says he's not gonna come down. I'll get him down. And the frog jumps up onto the dresser, and the bear starts climbing up the dresser by using the handles. And the toy soldier says, "So this is what's happening. Our plans are known, and the other toys are destroying us." And he jumps off the dresser and shatters on the floor to commit suicide. So the other animals sweep the toy soldier under the rug, and they have this tiny quick conversation where the frog says, "That was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be." And the bear says, "Yeah, it was a lot easier than that first one. That was a tough one. Luckily, we had the help from the people across the street with the panda bears." And the bear says, "We're going to be able to deal with those tanks and the other guns arriving today real easily. I'm actually beginning to enjoy this." And that's the end of the story. So it's very strange. It was cool. It's cute. It's fun. It's got kind of a Twilight Zone feel, which is great for short stories, right? If you like, I'll be perfectly honest. I love M. Night Shyamalan. I love the Twilight Zone. I love twisty endings. I really do. And you've heard me say this before, and you'll hear me say it a bunch in the future. They're amazing if they're short enough, right? You cannot sit through a 2-hour movie to get a twist at the end. And there's a couple exceptions, of course, right? I know that The Sixth Sense did very well, right? There are times when it really works, but it's very rare. If you want to do M. Night Shyamalan kind of stuff, your things need to be 25 minutes long. Straight up. 25 minutes. And I believe most of M. Night Shyamalan's films would have been much more successful if he would instead release like a compilation of short films, right? If he got 2 other writers, if he grabbed Stephen King and somebody else, and they all wrote 25-minute kind of Twilight Zone-esque stories, and he put out an hour and 45-minute movie with 6 stories in it, or however many that works out to be, it would be amazing, right? That would sell. That would do very well, because he's very good at it. He'd be amazing on the Twilight Zone. But the problem is, he makes 2-hour movies, and I think that people can't slog through the middle of that to get to the Twilight Zone end. But this did an excellent job, because it's nice and short, and you're like, oh my gosh, the toys are alive, and these other toys are alive, and there's evil toys and good toys, and there's a toy war, but the good toys are easily winning. I mean, strange story, right? So I started to try to think about, what is this about, right? What's the kind of the point of this? Because Philip K. Dick was very proud of this story. Anytime the producer of the magazine that he would write for, anytime the producer was like, I'm going to put out a compilation of short stories, do you have any input on that? He would always say, I want you to do The Little Movement, right? Because he loved the story. He felt it was one of the best things he ever wrote. And as I thought about it more, I realized that this is getting close to the McCarthy era, where you've got communists coming out of the woodwork trying to do things, right? So this could be kind of a parallel to that. I also thought about consumerism, which is a big thing for Philip K. Dick. And it's funny, we had a comment earlier about how consumerism was kind of a part of this. And I was thinking we wouldn't really get to it till Ubik, but here we are, literally the next story, and we've already got this kind of an attack on consumerism, honestly. You've got these new kinds of toys that understand that they need to be marketed directly to children. Because if you try to market to adults, they're going to be sensible about it, you know? But if you market to the child, they're just overcome, and they're going to influence the parents to spend their money there. And I think that it's really because I know in the 80s this exploded, right? I don't know if you've ever watched the movies that made us or whatever it's called, but they do a whole thing on G.I. Joe and He-Man and all that stuff, and how they marketed those toys directly to children. And the cartoon was just an ad for the toys. And it all kind of, well, as far as we're concerned, it all kind of started with Star Wars, right? Using the film to market the toys, which made him a ton of money. But this is 52. So clearly, that kind of stuff was already happening way back. And Philip K. Dick, I think, was kind of picking up on it and saying, hey, this marketing towards children for these specific kinds of toys is sort of evil, you know? Your teddy bear is probably just fine. You don't need a crazy ad to sell a teddy bear. Kids just see it and they want it. But as the toys get more crazy and the advertising gets more crazy, they can sell stranger toys and they can charge more for them because they've already convinced the kid that that's what they want. So I feel like that's, to me, that's the neatest thing about this story, is the idea that consumerism is taking a strange turn and targeting our kids, which could be detrimental. So it's a good story. It's very cool. Once again, pick up the book. It's really good. I'm going to keep going through the stories, of course. And thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Have a great day.